ding, right? That one little exception. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Basketball Rules Expert, the show where we take National Federation of High School rules, we lift them off the printed page, breathe life into them, simplify, clarify, amplify, so that you can take them with you onto the basketball court. Greetings again, everybody. My name is Greg Austin with thebetterofficial.com. I've been a high school basketball official for over a decade, and I consider myself to be a basketball rules expert. This show is all about helping you on a journey to becoming a basketball rules expert as well. Before we get started, have to thank our fantastic, tremendous show supporters without whom the show would not be possible. Tom Henion, Les O'Connor, Chris Williams, Jim Kane, and Phil Harmonic. Much appreciated and much love. If you want to support the show, you can always buy us a coffee. There'll be a link in the show notes below. One of the things that we love is when we go to the mailbox and our latest edition of Referee Magazine is in the mailbox, right? We love the content. It's focused exclusively for officials. There's always something there. They're tapping into very knowledgeable and experienced officials. The articles are well written. We're a big fan of the Referee Magazine. But one of the things that always provides basketball officials and officials in other sports as well, but basketball officials, is there's always a moment where there's a quiz, 5-6 questions of, takes a different approach with the question asking. Which of these things is not true, etc. Now, the questions themselves are always focused towards high school, NCAA women, NCAA men, so that there's a complexity to them that's related to NCAA rules, right? But we can always, when presented with a quiz, is say, okay, look, I'm going to take the quiz right now, out of context. It's not in the game. I'm not thinking about basketball necessarily, but I'm going to open it up. Here's the question. Which of these things is not, etc. I'm going to just give it a go. If I'm unsure, that's great. That's great. I'm unsure. Sort of a gray area in my rules knowledge has been pointed out. So I've taken some recent episodes of Referee Magazine, put together some questions, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. It's a different format. We won't be working with were the officials correct, yes or no, more a 4-choice option. So let's get started with our very first play. What is a team member who is legally on the court called? A player? A substitute? Bench personnel? Or a student athlete? That's an easy question. But there's like a twist. There's a twist in there, right? So we know by definition that team members on the court in the game are known as players. They are, while they may also be considered team members, they may also be considered student athletes, especially at the high school level. They are student athletes, they are team members, but they are players by rule. And understanding that status, being a master of status, is critical for being a successful basketball official. So we're starting off with a super easy question. Some of the questions are knock dead easy. Some of the questions may give us a little more pause. Let's move on to our very next play scenario. A player who has been replaced may not re-enter until what point? The ball becomes live. The next dead ball after a clock has properly started. An opponent has committed an opponent has committed a foul or violation before the clock has properly started, or either B, right? So, understanding a player has been substituted for. The other player, their substitute, has come into the game and they have been replaced. By rule, when can that player then return? We need that. We need to have that knowledge and understanding to properly adjudicate, right? So when can those players return? By rule, in National Federation of High School Rules, the clock must properly run. The clock has to run and the dead ball opportunity has to exist before a player can return to the game by rule. Of course, recently we had with some interesting correctable error scenarios where we brought a player back when that potentially didn't happen. But that's the rare exception. The player has been substituted. A timeout will not allow them a chance to come back. They have to sit a tick. The clock has to properly start. So a coach cannot buy the player back in this situation with a timeout. Let's look at our next play scenario. Starter A1 is wearing uniform number 6. What is the penalty? No penalty. The number is legal. Technical foul charged to A1. Direct technical foul charged to Team A's head coach, or administrative technical foul. Straightforward, but here's where, when Referee Magazine asks this question, remember it's high school, NCAA women, NCAA men, and the rules may be different in terms of what the penalty is, etc. And of course, just brings forward the point is if you are working with a collegiate official on your high school game, you have to address that and understand that they, in a moment where a decision has to be made about something atypical like this, they may lean towards NCAA, and you have to be there as a bastion of National Federation of High School rules and say, no, right? So we have to stand up for the game and high school rules and help our crew out if they're potentially in that situation. So in this instance, we have an illegal number. That is a technical foul by rule. Great. Okay, easy peasy. Well, wait a minute. All right. Of course, technical fouls, and we do have a video, I'll make a link above. Technical fouls, we have to know what kind of technical foul is it? Is it a player technical? Is it a substitute technical? Is it a team technical? Is it a bench technical? Right? We have to know in order to properly adjudicate. So, in National Federation of High School Basketball rules, an illegal number, the uniforms and uniform numbers are the responsibility of the head coach. It is by rule, a direct technical foul on the head coach, 2 free throws for the opponent, and a division line throw-in. And the coach now, of course, has lost their privilege to stand and coach. Let's look at our very next play scenario. What is the penalty for A1 wearing an illegal jersey? No penalty is enforced during the game. Technical foul to the player, direct technical foul to the head coach, or administrative technical foul. So what did we learn from the previous question? That uniforms are the responsibility of the head coach. So if we've determined that the uniforms are illegal, then the penalty is a direct technical on the head coach. Let's say we have a situation where the players, let's say there's confusion. For whatever reason, the home team does not have white uniforms available. They only have their road uniforms available and have to play the game wearing blue. The opponent, the visitor has showed up. They don't have white available, not that they would be required to. They only have their red uniforms. So by rule, the home team must wear white. We have a situation where we have illegal uniforms from all team members on the team. How many technical fouls? We don't want to screw this one up. If they have 15 players, we are not assessing 15 technical fouls, right? So we need to be aware that it is one direct technical foul on the head coach for illegal uniforms and any number of illegal uniforms when discovered. So in this instance, we would have a direct technical foul on the head coach. We would move on from there. All right, let's move on to our next play scenario. All of the following are true of extra periods except which? Each team is granted an additional timeout. Unused timeouts are carried over into the extra period. Team fouls are reset to 0. The intermission between extra periods shall be 1 minute in length. Right? So obviously, anytime we're moving to an extra period, we need to be bulletproof as a crew. We don't want to make any mistakes at this point of the game. What do we have? We have a tie game at the end of regulation or at the end of a previous extra period, right? The game has been fantastic. The energy is great. We don't want to inject and make a mistake rules-wise at this point of the game. We want to be experts and comfortable and manage the situation really well. Right? So when we have overtime, each team in National Federation of High School Basketball rules, each team is given an additional 60-second timeout or full timeout. If they and their timeouts that they may have had from the previous period carry over. So if they had 2 timeouts remaining or 1 timeout remaining, they would continue to have those and they get 1 additional on top of that. Extra periods are simply an extension of the 4th period. That's our takeaway for National Federation of High School Basketball rules. Extra periods are an extension of the 4th period. So in the 4th period, we had team fouls 9 and 7. We start the overtime, team fouls are 9 and 7, right? It's an extension, right? We're just continuing on. Right? So we want to nail that down so that we make sure teams are going in the correct direction, right? Since it's an extension of the 4th period, they will continue to shoot at the same basket. Everything just moves forward with extra time added. All right, let's move on now to our very next play scenario. A1 is fouled by B2 while airborne and shooting the ball. The try is successful. The foul is ruled an intentional foul. Which of the following is true? A1 shall shoot 1 free throw. A1 shall shoot 2 free throws. Any Team A player shall shoot 1 free throw, or any Team B player will shoot 1 free throw. Right? The intentional foul question. Referee Magazine adds it in. It's something that there is a lot of confusion among the great population of basketball officials at the high school level. We come back to it here at A Better Official again and again, and we want to take with us some piece of information, some phrase, right? Some understanding of the rules of an intentional foul with us onto the basketball court so that when something atypical happens, we get the play correct, right? We have a player in this instance shooting the ball and the try is successful. Maybe it's a push in the back. The officials rule an intentional foul. We need to know what is the penalty for an intentional foul. It's simple, it's straightforward, but when this situation occurs, where the ball goes in, our brain says, oh, and 1, right? Because, again and again and again, when a foul occurs and the ball goes in, and 1, when it 1 free throw. But as Randy Wilson points out, no, I'm not going to go there. Okay, so what we need to know is what is the penalty. And the penalty for an intentional foul is always 2 free throws to the offended player or their substitute and a throw in to the team at the spot nearest the foul. Always, with one little exception, and that is if a player is attempting a 3-point try, intentional foul is ruled, the try is unsuccessful. In that one instance, 3 free throws to the offended player or their substitute should they be injured, and a throw into the team at the spot nearest the foul. So that's a rare exception to that, the little asterisk, but always 2 free throws, offended player, ball to the team, throw in nearest the spot of the foul. Always, 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 always. Ding, right? That one little exception. Let's move to our next play scenario. Team A has a throw-in with 23.7 seconds remaining on the game clock. Team A's throw-in pass is kicked by B1. The game clock shows 23.5 seconds. Reset the game clock to what time? So 23.7 seconds remaining in the game. Throw-in is released. Defender kicks the ball. Kicking violation is ruled. What do we reset the game clock to? Remain at 23.5. Reset to 23.7. Set to 23.4? Or set to 23.0? Thanks, Referee Magazine. Those last two don't make a lot of sense. I could describe an NCAA women's situation where we may think, oh, we have to take 0.3 off. But that when we're talking about National Federation of High School Basketball rules, right? We just need to know that the touching by the defender in this instance is not a legal touching. The clock should properly start when it is legally touched in bounds. So in this instance, we have definite knowledge that the clock erroneously started in this instance. Certainly completely understandable by the timer, right? They're not going to be thinking, is that an intentional kick? Right? They're going to respond to a touch and let the officials sort it out from there. But it's a great play scenario for a number of reasons. But in this instance, we would reset to the original time before the throw-in started, 23.7. Straightforward. Okay, great. So number one, the first thing it brings up is, did the crew know that it was 23.7? We've got 23.7 seconds left in the game, or at any point in the game. If we have a number on the clock, the crew has to be aware of that number. It has to. We have to build that habit and fundamental into our game so that we're not, oh, did the clock move? I don't know, right? We need to have that clock management as a crew. Now, you may be the person on the crew who's really good at clocks, and your partner's not so much. They may be stronger at game management and communication, this, that, and the other thing. But we have to, as a crew, have the knowledge on that. Now, we have a couple of other scenarios that could quickly dovetail off of this, and that brings up another point about when we embrace looking at rule scenarios, right? We look at a rule scenario such as this. We have a play scenario that's presented by Referee Magazine. And then we determine the answer then. A great practice as a young official is to say, okay, well, what if it was let's say the throw-in was a designated spot. Then what would happen? Let's say the throw-in was an end-line throw-in where the player could move. Then what would happen? Let's say the throw-in was an alternating possession arrow throw-in. Then what would happen, right? And start thinking about variations on the theme. And then we can, quickly take a relatively simple question and expand and think things through and have a better understanding of the rules of high school basketball. So if we look at this scenario and we say, okay, all right, so we got that right. It was a designated spot, throw in, all is good. What if it was a situation where the player could run the end line? Can the player, so we have a resulting throw-in violation. We have a violation by the opponent of the thrower for kicking the basketball. We reset the clock correctly. Can we still run the end line? We need to know that, right? By rule, yes. Yes, we can. The illegal touch by the defender does not remove our ability to run the end line, or the team to run the end line. Now, here's, of course, the big one, is what if it was an alternating possession arrow throw-in? It's an alternating possession throw-in. Now what do we have? We have an AP throw-in. When does the throw-in end? When it is legally touched inbounds. Has the ball been legally touched inbounds? No, the throw-in has not ended. Okay? The resulting throw-in, is that an alternating possession throw-in? No, that's a throw-in for the kicking violation by the defender. So we had an alternating possession throw-in. We never completed an alternating possession throw-in, so the arrow in that instance would not change. We may have some explaining to do. There's going to be confusion. Maybe our table personnel need to know, hey, we're not using the arrow on this, coach, by rule, this, that, and the other thing. But the resulting throw-in is for the violation, and since we did not complete an alternating possession throw-in, the arrow would remain as it was before the throw-in. So just in general, that's a great way that we can start taking value from relatively simple questions. Okay, I got the answer to the question. Great, I'm great. Okay, but what if this? And what if this? And what if this? Now we have a more full understanding of the rules of National Federation of High School basketball rules. Let's move on to our next play scenario. The timer shall sound a 15-second warning horn in all of the following except which? Before the expiration of time, before the start of the game, before the expiration of any timeout, before the expiration of time for a disqualified player, and before the expiration of time of the halftime intermission. Okay, so we want our timer to have those 15-second warning horns prior to a situation where we are going to be putting the ball in play and we need the teams available for that restart. Okay? So if we look at the first one, before the expiration of time, before the game starts, well, let's think it through. What happens at the start of the game? In a varsity game, we're usually going to have some sort of pregame activity, right? We're going to introduce starters. We're going to have a national anthem, etc. We're not going to necessarily just run down the clock and start the game. If that's the case, then we could have that horn, but it's out of place in that scenario. We're going to have some pregame stuff, right? We're going to allow the teams to huddle pregame, etc. But we have a situation where we have a timeout. We need that horn, first horn, right? We would expect the players to be ready to play at the second horn. And that's a game management situation, something we may have to address early on, but that's what we could do it pregame. We could do it during the first timeout, but we want the teams ready to play at the second horn. We have a disqualified player, right? Obviously, a super critical time of the game. We have a potentially hostile coach, a coach who wants to, make a statement by being obstinate and I need my time and I have to get my team over here. And, they're sort of acting out in that scenario. National Federation of High School said, hey, let's be really clear here. Let's put in that warning horn so the coach knows they're on notice and what have you. So in a disqualified player scenario, definitely before the expiration of time and the halftime intermission. right? The teams have come in. We've had a 1-minute warning horn during halftime. Teams have gone to their benches. They're huddling with their coaches. They're ready to go. We want that 15-second horn so that we can bring them out and begin the process of starting the second half. So the one instance here I would say in a general usage is that 15 seconds at the very start of the game, because we've started, the clock is running down and we're going to have some sort of pregame activities. As basketball officials, we need to have rules knowledge. We also need to know how to handle situations. When we have a disqualified player, sometimes it's strictly business. Sometimes the coach knows before you do. It's like, Billy, go get John, right? When they commit a foul, we go to the table, we report, and then they say, hey, ref, that's 5. The coach already has the sub at the table. Sometimes it's strictly business as usual. Other times, we have to be prepared for a coach to potentially act out, and we need to manage those situations successfully. Billy Mack points out locally they have an opportunity. It's like that official can go opposite, and another official can come over and say, hey, coach, that's 5, and handle the disqualification process that way. But, our entire process, Al Batista has a great thing about the 50 things you can do to get better. And one of them is like throw 10 jump balls every day, or read 5 case plays, or what have you. But one thing you can really practice is a disqualification procedure. As a young official, I've got a disqualified player. I've got a coach who thinks that was a really inappropriate call at that time. It was marginal contact, incidental contact in their judgment, and you fouled out their best player, right? Something we can practice is, right, we have the foul, we go to the table, we report, the table says that's 5, right? Maybe we're, at a point where we know that's 5 before we even get to the table. We know we have put the 5th foul on that player, but we get that information. How we manage that process with a potentially upset coach is something that we can practice in advance, so that when it happens in the game, it's not, surprising. Their behaviors may be surprising, but we want to know what we're going to say, how we're going to say it, how we're going to initiate the timer starting the 15-second interval, how we're going to respond when the interval ends, etc., and what we're going to do during that interval. We can practice that. We can practice scenarios, right? Scenario 1, head coach says, I need my 50, they'll usually say, I need my 20 seconds, or I'll need my 30 seconds. And then they bring their point guard over and they make a point of having a discussion. It's like, all right, so we're going to have to press now. We're going to do this thing. But they're really kind of acting out because they feel offended, right? What are we going to say during that interval that's going to lead to a situation of success, right? NFHS says, look, they are responsible. That head coach is responsible for getting that player to the table within the 15-second interval, and that's it. That is like a straightforward line in the sand. We're tired of coaches with this behavior. We need them to produce a substitute so the game can continue to move. Okay, so we have the backing of NFHS that says, coach, that's a technical foul, right? We got to know what that's going to do to the game scenario as well. But we can think this through in advance. So we have a coach coach, that's 5. I understand you didn't like the call. I understand. I had illegal contact, but I need a substitute, right? We can help them off the ledge. If they want to act out and have some sort of behavior, right? We can remind them, coach, I need that substitute now, as the 15 seconds is going down. And then horn sounds, we can either assess, we can say, coach, no response, and then whack, however you want to manage the game situation. But it is something that we can practice, because when it happens in the game, that's a really critical moment for a young official, right? Or for an official in a hotly contested game, etc. right? The easy stuff will take care of itself. But at that key moment, if we have a little bit of repetitions, then we can end up being stronger. So I strongly recommend for young officials is to take a moment and imagine that scenario and practice that scenario, right? If you're practicing your signals in a mirror, that's all fantastic, and that's really good. But we can also practice scenarios, and one of them is a disqualification, because they will happen in your game. To the next play scenario. A1 is attempting the first of 2 free throws, A1 is attempting the first of 2 free throws, which is true of simultaneous violations by each team. Which is true. I need some editing on this. Which is true if a simultaneous violation by each team occurs while the ball is in the air during A1's successful try. The free throw is canceled and a substitute free throw shall be administered. The free throw shall count and the simultaneous violation is ignored. Ay, ay, ay. What a mess. Okay, so we have a release of a try while the ball is in the air, simultaneous violations by opponents in this scenario. Last week was free throw week here at A Better Official. I'll put a link above to the entire playlist where we discuss free throw rules and restrictions. A link above. Got it. Okay, so we have a simultaneous violation. When we have a simultaneous violation on a free throw, what happens? The ball becomes dead. The ball becomes dead. We need to know that. We have a violation by the opponent of the thrower. Let's say we have a different situation where there's a violation by the opponent of the thrower. We have a delayed violation by rule. We have, in another situation, we have a violation by a teammate of the thrower. The ball becomes dead immediately. We have a situation where we have a violation by the thrower. The ball becomes dead immediately. If we have a situation where there are simultaneous violations, and simultaneous or double is a rules language, but they can occur at different times. We could have a player behind the three-point line, a defensive player, take a step and violate. The thrower then releases the try and shoots an air ball. We have a violation by opponents. That's a simultaneous violation by rule. The ball becomes dead and no goal can be scored, right? So if we know those 3 distinctions, violation by the opponent, delayed. If it goes in, we ignore. If it doesn't, we enforce. By the thrower or a teammate of the thrower, ball becomes dead, we move on. Simultaneous violation, ball becomes dead, and we move on. Straightforward. Well, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Before you go, if you could take a moment, hit the like button. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Puts the video in front of more basketball officials so that we can all get better together. Allow me a moment to thank our fantastic show supporters, Tom Henion, Les O'Connor, Chris Williams, Jim Kane, and Phil Harmonic. Much appreciated and much love. If you want to support the show, you can always buy us a coffee at abetterofficial.com/coffee. There will be a link above and in the show notes below. As always, we have additional video content for you here. Here is a video that I recommend, and here is a video that YouTube recommends. But whichever you choose, we'll see you in the very next video.